Are Iran's attacks really Trump's fault?
Well, Dave, I mean, when you're giving out the Iranian press's propaganda as your talking points, you got to check yourself and see what you're thinking, because I'm sorry, when Iran was spreading genocide in Syria or terrorism through the Middle East, that wasn't Obama's fault. No, they're saying that at this point, because we have a maximum pressure upon them, when the kid is having a temper tantrum, then it must be the adult's fault. No, it means our containment's working. It means they're really squeezed and they're going to continue to try to act out. But this is all about, they're attacking civilian tankers, which are the sweet spot, and we need to start to look to solutions which might be Navy escorts through the Straits of Hormuz and others to try to prevent them from affecting our economy and retaliating, which is really what they're trying to do.
Zuhdi, Gary Smith here. First, welcome to the show, and nice to have you. I'm curious why you think Iran would. We've had maximum pressure in the words of the congressman for a while now. Why would they choose to act now, and what do you think their next steps are going to be?
Well, that's a good question, Gary. It's great to be with you. You know, basically, when you're a belligerent actor in the region that's used to doing whatever you want, and you're finally getting contained, and your economy's tanking, the revolution internally is growing, they're trying to distract from the revolution. They're trying to exact a price to the oil prices. So their first goal is to jack up oil prices and make the region pay for making them not have oil. Their response is sort of, well, if we don't get to get oil, nobody else gets to get oil. That's number one. Number two is they're trying to see if President Trump really is a non-interventional president, maybe he'll push back and relax it. I think they're going to be proven wrong, not only because President Trump is not going to be blackmailed, but neither is Secretary Pompeo or Advisor Bolton. So I think that's third.
Hi, Zuhdi. Adam Lashinsky in California. Good to see you again. I'm going to start by saying that I'm not going to comment on what the Congress said, and also that I'm on America's side, not on Iran's side. My question for you is, do you think tensions between the United States and Iran are higher now, or when the United States, along with the other major powers in the world, signed a treaty with Iran several years ago?
Well, how do you measure tensions, Adam? I would measure tensions.
How do you mention tensions, Zuhdi? I mention them by holes in the sides of ships in the Straits of Hormuz, for example.
Well, how about measuring them, Adam, by looking at the hundreds of thousands dead in Syria, the acts of terror by Hezbollah, the belligerence against our allies, Saudi Arabia and others. So the bottom line is...
Not debating that with you. The question I'm asking you is tension between the United States and Iran higher now or higher when we signed the treaty with them with the other world powers?
The United States is the leader of the free world, so the tensions between the free world and theocratic, political, global, hegemonic
so you won't answer my question.
is worse
That's cool.
under Obama. Today, if you're going to use a very narrow lens, you want me to say yes to what you're saying, and I disagree completely. The tensions against the free world and the Islamic belligerence is much more before than it is now, because they are screaming. They are very afraid that they're not going to be able to enact the regional controls that they've had in the past.
Zuhdi, this is Jack Brewer, and I agree with you 100%. This time is a little bit different. My in-laws are from Iran. They just got back, very familiar with what's going on the ground in Iran. Let's talk about the people, right? We can talk about the political issues back and forth and give our perspective, but what are the people of Iran feeling right now? And I can tell you what they're feeling. Their businesses are suffocating. They can't even use credit cards. They don't have banking options there. And people don't have food as if they would have had 2, 3, 4 years ago. So these are real issues that the folks and the people of Iran are facing right now. And so, yes, Trump's maximum pressure is working. I hate to see people suffer. That's the worst thing that can happen. It's not right. But at the same time, that regime has got to correct themselves.
Well, I have to tell you that what's suffering the most now is the regime. To think that somehow $150 billion went to help the people that President Obama handed them a few years ago did not go to the people. It went to bolster the regime. The opening up the economy was not an opening up to the people. The revolution now is saying, thank you, President Trump, because finally the people suffocating us are paying. That's who pays under sanctions. It's not the people that pay. That's a talking point from the dictators of the world that believe that somehow sanctions hurt the people. They never let that trickle down. It never trickled down to Saddam Hussein. It never trickled down through Cuba or elsewhere, sanctions actually help contain regimes.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at the recent events and the actions taken on these tankers, I would say the tensions may be a little bit higher now. But what was the alternative? President Obama signed a bad deal with Iran whereby it was basically breaking all the rules and going forward with its nuclear program. So just to keep them quiet or to keep things moving along, is that something that we want to ignore? You know, the president has tried to take a harder line in this situation because he's trying to take action to stop what was going on in that country. And, you know, I think that is more important than them necessarily acting out. You know, we've seen this in his negotiations with so many other regimes as well. He brings things to a head so that progress can be made.
You're exactly right, because to look at the baby having a tantrum in the living room and ignore the bigger picture of what's happening in the neighborhood really is a perspective that the asynchronous warfare terrorists want you to do, which is why they have this strategy, why they're acting out directly against ships that are bringing in things to help Western economies, because they want you to pay attention to the finger and not to the bigger picture, which is their hegemonic acts of terror through Syria, through against Saudi Arabia, through the region with Russia, etc. So you have to look at the bigger pictures. Right now, American interests are stronger than they've ever been in the Middle East for the last decade. Yes, we've had more direct conflict in the waters, but our interests are better served than they were at any time under the Obama administration, and the people of Iran, too.
Zuhdi, a quick final question. Back in 1987, we were having trouble, the same kind of thing. The Iranians were trying to block the strait because of their war with Iraq at the time. But we actually had military escorts for all the tankers. That led to a confrontation in September of 1987 in which we sank an Iranian boat. 4 Iranians were killed as a result of that, but they stopped blocking the harbor. Is it going to come to that where we have military escorts for the tankers and we may have some kind of conflict with Iran?
It may. I think that is the best solution, is to protect our tankers so that the Straits is not blocked from economic continuation and the prices don't continue to jack up. But remember, under Obama, we had 15 soldiers that were taken that were Navy soldiers.
That's
that
true.
For 24 hours, Secretary of State Kerry had to go beg for them to come back. So we're going to continue to have these little conflagrations. Iran does not want an outright conflict. President Trump does not want to go there either. So I think we do need to escort the ships. And when we have a direct conflict, we'll have to deal with it. But it doesn't mean that there's the edge of war.
What a great full discussion. Zuhdi Jasser, please come back and see us again. That was terrific. We appreciate it.
Anytime.